I have since decided that I am going to put together a whole new wardrobe. I have further decided that I am going to make a whole new wardrobe.
So young, so naive. 2021 Sparkle and Fade was full of hopeless optimism. Let's see how that went, shall we? So in all that, the hardest lessons for me to learn, for one thing, you have to be prepared to waste materials. And that was really hard for me. It's still hard for me. Tough going into a project knowing that you're going to have to waste something. It's going to have to be garbage afterward. That's still something I struggle with, but I'm getting better. I have to give myself enough time to make mistakes too. This one is still something that I'm working on. Mistakes are going to happen. I'm new. A lot of the stuff I'm doing, I'm not following any kind of pattern or instructions. I'm just winging it. I have to be prepared for it to not work out really well. And because I'm doing this for my YouTube channel and working toward a deadline, I need to give myself more time, and I don't do that. Another thing that was hard for me to learn, and I don't know why, but seams aren't always invisible. Pretty obvious. I mean, I can see the seams on this where it's hemmed and where the elastic is stitched in, but for some reason in my head, seams are always going to be invisible. So I wouldn't change the thread on my machine. Really, you need to get the thread that matches the fabric and top stitch. Top stitching is not terrible. It is your friend, and sometimes it has to happen. Change the thread on your machine to thread that matches the fabric. Sometimes you have to hand sew, and I've said this as a point of learning in a couple of videos now, and it's like sometimes it's faster to just hand sew it than machine sew it, depending on what you're doing. And sometimes you can't machine sew it, so don't try, just hand sew it from the get-go. And the last hard lesson for me to learn, it matters which side of the fabric you're placing your pattern on. So I've come across this a few times, and it's always with sleeves. When I first started sewing, it was just solid color cotton, so it didn't matter which side I put the pattern on. It was reversible. Now that I'm going into prints, it matters. With sleeves especially, they aren't symmetrical. It isn't just like I can flip it over and it'll still work. And so one sleeve looks really good and the other sleeve looks not so good because it's on backwards. It matters which side you cut the pattern on. And in all this, I had some revelations. One of them, hand sewing isn't that bad. Every time I have to hand sew, I dread it, and then it just doesn't take me as long as I thought it would, and it isn't as bad as I thought it would be. But for some reason, I can't shake that hand sewing bad feeling, and I think a lot of it has to do with when I was a kid and I was first learning how to sew, my stitches weren't solid, so they didn't hold things together very well. So I think in my head, I still have that idea that if I hand sew it, it's not going to be as quality, as good a job, and it's going to take me a lot longer. Another revelation is some projects are exactly as easy as they appear to be. When I did the elf tunic, it was just had this idea in my head, I think it'll work this way, and for the most part it did. I messed up the collar, and I should have made the armpits not so tight, but when it's all said and done, the pattern that I had, the idea that I had, was exactly as easy as I thought it would be. And on that note, precision isn't really necessary for a lot of the projects I'm doing. I'm not into tight-fitting things. I'm not doing a lot of projects that require exact measurements. So precision isn't as important as I thought it would be. Another revelation I had, don't be afraid to seam rip. Don't be afraid to seam rip. I'm telling you, don't be afraid to seam rip. Especially when you learn to seam rip correctly. It's really fast and easy and doesn't take all day. There's a lot of times where I thought, well, maybe if I keep going with the project, I can fix this. When really, it's just easier to seam rip it. Seam rip it, do it again. Don't wait until it's a finished product because then you have to reverse more steps. Just do it right off the bat. And something that I have not yet implemented, but is a revelation to me, I need to leave more room for seam allowance. I'm just not doing it, guys. I don't know what it is. I think it goes back to that wasting thing. I don't want to waste fabric, but some of the fabric frays, and it's fraying while I'm making it, so then I have to seam rip it out and sew it further, and it's a mess. I just need to leave more seam allowance and accept that I'm gonna have to waste that much fabric to do it. Going forward, I have more projects planned than I have time to make them, but if you have any ideas for something you would like to see me make, perhaps to see how difficult it is before tackling it yourself, please feel free to leave a comment. Until I receive access to the community tab, any updates on missed publishing deadlines or crowdsourcing ideas on projects happens on Instagram. So be sure to follow me there. I did not forget that I still owe you the grand finale dress from my thrift flip, and that is coming up soon. It was supposed to be next, but you know, things happen. I have a bunch of videos coming. It is coming up soon though, so switch on your notifications by hitting the little bell icon, and you'll be the first to know when it's out. Chances are good that you're already a subscriber, but if you aren't, and you would like to see more aesthetic sewing content, please do subscribe. I get a warm, fuzzy feeling anytime I gain a new subscriber. That is all for this video, friends. Until next time.